to start off by saying that this is a subject that I think all of us come into contact with as we move around our city, but so few of us actually stop to think about what's going on or what could be done. And so, up front, I want to say kudos to both of your organizations for leaning in and trying to figure out how we do better by folks who really need help. But I want to start by talking with you, David, about this new idea that you have, where it comes from, and how you think it will affect the homelessness problem that we have here in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Henderson. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here and allowing us, me an opportunity to talk about, something that's really been near and dear to my heart for quite some time, and that's the homelessness issue, especially as it relates to people who are disadvantaged and suffering from some sort of dysfunction like mental illness or addiction, which is where we specialize in the most. And you mentioned the new project that we have going on here at Mariners Inn. It's called the Anchor, and what the Anchor will really allow us to do is to expand those services to people who need it most. Right now, we operate a permanent supportive housing program and a recovery housing program in our current building. And what the new structure will allow us to do is take those two programs and put them into the new building, and thereby expanding our services in our current structure. And mind you, this will all be going on while construction is underway. So it will expand those beds to about 82 in total. 44 of those beds will be permanent supportive housing beds, 100% affordable Section 8, which is something that I'm extremely pleased about. And the other thing that I'm pleased about this new venture that we're embarking on is it opens our services up to men and women.
Yeah. Father Tim, I'm pretty familiar with what goes on at the Pope Francis Center as an occasional attendee at Peter and Paul Catholic Church. But tell our viewers about the work that goes on there, which is so critical for the homeless population in downtown.
Sure. So we've been at it for about 32 years now. We have a day center at the back of the church, which has been renovated, and so that we're able to provide a couple of nutrient-dense, balanced meals for those who are experiencing homelessness, along with showers, laundry, medical, dental, legal clinics that are anything we can do to help them in their daily lives. But we did decide that about 5 years ago that this approach, while what we do is beautiful, I think we treat people with dignity and respect, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to be more involved in the transformational aspect of this and to help people really get off the street. So I went around the country and I looked at 27 different programs in about 10 different cities. And I looked at what was working and what wasn't working, who was most effective in treating chronic homelessness, and what were they doing. And I came back and designed a program, and like Mariners Inn, we're in the process of building a campus where folks can come and stabilize from the presenting issues that are causing the homelessness. And while they're with us, we'll begin to work with them on finding them permanent housing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's an interesting kind of spectrum represented in the two ideas here. One is kind of aimed at I guess emergent and transitional homeless issues. The other is more anchored in the idea of permanent solutions. I want to talk a little about the population we have here in Detroit and how fluid it is. It's one of the things I think people don't quite understand, that there is this spectrum of people who find themselves without a place to live, and their problems fall along that spectrum. Sometimes it is a temporary issue. Sometimes it is something that we can really fix quickly. Other times it's something that really needs long-term attention. Father Tim, I'll start with you and what you see there at Pope Francis.
So we're seeing about 150 to 200 people a day. That's steadily increasing since the pandemic. And I think the latest point in time count is that we're around 1,700 homeless that's counted in January. So it's an inaccurate number, as we all know, but it's the best we've got. And of those numbers, probably around 200, a little over 200 are chronically homeless, which means that they've been on the street for a year or longer, or 4 times in the last 3 years. So those are the different populations. And we do see, especially since the pandemic, I've seen a lot more men in their 50s, first-time homeless. Some crisis has happened. A lot of revolving around the pandemic has led to their homelessness. So those folks without significant mental illness or addiction issues are generally pretty easy to move into, get them back into housing. The others, those sort of folks are on the streets for longer term, habituated to lifestyle and have a much harder time getting housed. And that's why we really wanted to focus on those folks who are seeming to fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. David, what about you?
Yeah, I concur with Father Tim. I think one of the things that kind of sets, that has been setting the trend since COVID, has impacted everybody in the world really, is that we noticed a lot of mental illness, co-occurring disorders with the people that we serve, and they've gotten more severe in terms of what we have been traditionally focused on, which is substance abuse treatment and recovery. And now with co-occurring disorders and the mental health illnesses more severe, we have to now focus on not just getting them into treatment and into care, but maintaining their care, maintaining their sobriety, on top of maintaining housing. Part of what makes this new structure unique and what we're doing is that, those permanent supportive housing apartments will be theirs.
Yeah.
It will be something that they can call their own. It will be something that they won't be forced out of. And, unless of course, something that's just out of our control that we can't control. But I think by providing them with that sense of, as Father Tim mentioned before, dignity and respect, and something to call their own, a place of their own, actually promotes the idea of long-term recovery, long-term sobriety. And it's more important to us to see people in that atmosphere versus seeing them on the streets with no place to go and, no place to call their own. I think it helps us to be able to help them, because in turn, after doing that, it's amazing how much they decide to help someone else. And
Yeah.
there's an aspect of our program, we call it our Alumni Peer Recovery Support Program, that gives back in a way that's phenomenal, because what better way for someone to get the help that they need than to hear from someone who's actually been there themselves.
Yeah.
So that's another unique aspect of what we do here.
Yeah. I started off the conversation talking about how, this is an issue that all of us come into contact with in the city from time to time. I can't imagine an existence in Detroit without seeing the problem that we have with people not being able to find shelter, or adequate shelter. I'm a graduate of U of D Jesuit High School, and I remember spending time over at the Capuchin Soup Kitchen, trying to make sure people had food during the day. I wonder if you can talk, each of you, just a little about how we get people the opportunity to be more proactive about support for the homelessness. As I say, we walk by them all the time in this city. I think for a lot of us, it never clicks that, hey, there's a role that I could play. There's something I could do. There's something I could be a part of that could alleviate that. David, I'll start with you this time.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. I get asked that question, a lot, especially by people who want to, help us and volunteer for us and donate, items for us to help care for the people that we serve. Is, they'll typically say, and then we see it a lot in the city, whether it's over at an overpass or on a corner of a busy intersection or something where someone's holding a sign saying whatever it is that has to do with being homeless and needing food. What do you say? What do you do? What do you do in those circumstances? And I always say to them, they are people. They're people just like we are, and they had a life before the life that you see them living now. Stop and talk to them. Stop and ask them if there's anything you can do to help support them getting better. And sometimes you might run into some people that say, I'm fine, just leave me alone, I'm trying to do whatever. But it shouldn't prevent you from at least knowing their story. The more stories that you know, and the more things that you understand about why people end up in the circumstances that they're in, it gives you a better opportunity to support what it is they're trying to do if they want to get better while they're trying to get better. So I say, you talk to them, you learn the story, you find out ways that you can help. We're always open to providing the resources necessary to lead them in the right direction. You can, refer them to us, and then we can refer them to, a place that will best fit their needs. But we don't pass up opportunities to help people by not addressing, in some circumstances, the elephant in the room, because I've seen a lot where people just go right by, don't say anything,
Right.
Unless it's something that's labeling or stigmatizing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
treat them like people.
So, Father Tim, I was at St. Peter and Paul the Sunday that they dedicated the homeless Jesus statue out front, which I think is a really important reminder of just what I'm talking about. The idea of walking past, not noticing, not feeling empowered or obligated maybe to do very much. Talk about the way we draw people in to the process that you're involved in.
Yeah, that statue is a great reminder that we all carry within us that the divine, right? The divine life that requires respect and dignity and is seen as worthy. So I think David hit it right on the head. I think relationship is key to understanding and being a part of it. I'll say over and over again, when we all do our part, miracles happen. And I get to see that on a daily basis, as volunteers come in, as donors help fund the program. But it ultimately is about relationship and understanding the folks that are experiencing homelessness. I think trauma is the underlying cause of all homelessness. I've seen that over and over again. And, to begin to recognize that as the core issue that is causing homelessness, and there's a lot of it. There's racial trauma, there's generational trauma, there's childhood trauma, there's trauma of becoming homeless, like the idea of going into a lifestyle that's unsheltered is a traumatic event for so many folks. And then they're continually abused on the street by people panhandling that are yelled at and just treated terribly. So understanding that that's what's underneath a lot of the mental illness and addiction that we're seeing, and allow us to begin to let them show us our humanity by revealing their humanity. And I think that that's the core of how, if people want to help, they can come down to the Mariners Inn, they come down to Pope Francis. There's multiple ways in which they can get involved, but really getting to know their stories. Like David said, this is not the life that they imagined when they were children. And a lot of them are, there's a lot of shame around mental illness and addiction. There's a lot of struggles with homelessness around those areas. Understanding their humanity and their struggles allows us to engage and find our own brokenness, understanding our own trauma, our own struggles with addiction. And that's when one, as David said, is one person talking to another and the same thing. That's where healing and miracles happen.
Yeah. Okay. David Sampson of Mariners Inn and Father Tim McCabe, the Pope Francis Center. Really great to have both of you here. Congratulations on the new projects, and thanks for joining us on American Black Journal.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.